It started with a tremor, barely noticeable, like the breath of a sleeping titan beneath the earth. The grand, white marble palaces of Atlantis shuddered, but no one believed disaster was coming. The priests in Poseidon's temple reassured the people. The ocean had always played with the city. The land was simply reminding them of its presence. But that night, a green fire lit up the sky. It descended onto the central square, where the pillar of eternal light stood, an artifact the Atlanteans believed was a gift from the gods. The light flickered, and then went out. Silence followed. By morning, the water in the canals had turned black. Fish floated belly up. Birds abandoned the city. The elders locked themselves in the palace for 7 hours. When the doors finally opened, their faces were pale. They knew. This was the end. A young scholar named Aureus snuck into the library, slipping into the forbidden chamber where ancient manuscripts were kept. They spoke of a terrible truth. Atlantis stood on the fault line of the world. The city wasn't just built on stone. It was held together by energy, a force the priests had controlled for centuries. Long ago, they had made a deal with something, or someone. And now, the deal was up. On the third day, a deep, resonant sound echoed from the depths of the ocean, like the voice of an ancient beast. The water around the island began to boil. People rushed to their ships, but the waves kept rising. Aureus ran toward the temple to warn the others, but the streets had already fallen into chaos. Strange symbols had appeared on the walls, symbols that hadn't been there before. Those who looked at them froze in terror. The last thing he remembered was a thunderous roar, not from the sky but from beneath his feet. The earth split apart. A massive wave rose, and then Atlantis was gone. They were called gods. They came from the darkness between the stars, shaping worlds just to watch intelligence grow. One day they created Atlantis, a perfect city, a place where humans could control energy, reshape nature, and extend their lives. The Atlanteans believed their knowledge was a gift. In truth, it was a test. It began when 3 motionless stars appeared in the sky. The priests read the ancient prophecies and understood. The experiment was over. The Atlanteans had gone too far. They had tried to create life of their own. They had tried to make their own gods. On the final night, figures walked the streets. Tall, radiant beings carrying objects that looked like keys. Keys to what? No one ever found out. By morning, Atlantis was gone. Atlantis had never been an ordinary city. Streets would shift their direction. Shadows moved on their own. The temple gates didn't always lead where they were supposed to. The priests used to say the city was something more. It was a doorway. A doorway to what? No one knew. But one night, a rift tore open above the temple of Poseidon. It was darker than darkness itself, and then it began to grow. The harbor waters churned, the air thickened, and whispers filled the city. The voices spoke, but not in any language the people could understand. When Atlantis vanished, no waves crashed against its walls. No flood swallowed its towers. It simply dissolved, as if it had never existed. Yet sometimes sailors claim they see reflections in the water, towers that appear on no map. They had stopped believing in gods. They didn't need them. The Atlanteans thought they had become gods themselves. The gates of Poseidon's temple had remained shut for centuries. But then a voice called out. It was neither human nor beast. It was everywhere, inside the stones, the sky, the sea. The first wave shattered the walls. The second wave crushed the palaces. On the third day, Atlantis drowned. But there is one prophecy. When the sea divides, the city will return. They had always heard the pulse. Faint, steady, never-ending. The stones seemed to breathe. The air vibrated. The priests taught that the city was alive. But one day, the rhythm changed. It became uneven, as if Atlantis itself was growing tired. Then the first buildings disappeared. People standing near the walls suddenly found themselves in open water, the city erased around them. And when the heart of Atlantis finally stopped, no one could remember what it had looked like, as if it had never existed at all. For millennia, people have searched for Atlantis, beneath the ocean, in deserts, among mountain crevices. But what if the answer had always been in plain sight, at the very heart of Egypt? In 1935, archaeologists clearing an ancient temple near Abu Simbel stumbled upon stone slabs covered in inscriptions they couldn't decipher. The hieroglyphs looked familiar, yet their structure was foreign, even to the most experienced Egyptologists. As the sand was carefully brushed away, one particular relief caught their attention: a circular city surrounded by water. Even then, whispers began to spread. Could the Egyptians have known about Atlantis? Years passed, and the mystery remained unsolved. Then, in the 1960s, hidden chambers were discovered beneath the temple. One of them was filled with statues unlike any found in traditional Egyptian art. Tall figures with elongated skulls, smooth faces, and narrow eyes resembled carvings uncovered in Minoan ruins on Crete. But the most astonishing discovery was an inscription on one of the reliefs, a name, Atar Atlan. This figure, man or god, was depicted wearing a royal headdress, yet his garments bore no resemblance to Egyptian styles. The inscription read, "He came from a city that no longer exists. He gave us the knowledge to build eternity." Who was this mysterious Atar Atlan? If his name is truly linked to Atlantis, could it mean that some survivors found refuge in Egypt? Some researchers argue that the pyramids themselves are echoes of knowledge brought by the Atlanteans. Ancient texts speak of a great cataclysm and people who came from the West. But which West? Were the Egyptians the students of Atlantis' last generation? Or have the traces of Atlantis been so expertly hidden that even today we fail to recognize them, while staring right at them? Traces of Atlantis have been found in various corners of the world. It all started with a stone. An old fisherman discovered it at the bottom of the ocean near Bimini, a small island in the Bahamas. The stone was unusual, smooth, as if polished thousands of years ago and covered in symbols no one could decipher. Locals dismissed it as nothing more than a random rock, but when archaeologists arrived, they uncovered something far more intriguing. Beneath layers of sand lay massive stone slabs arranged in a perfect pattern, resembling an ancient road leading into the depths of the ocean. Divers who ventured deeper reported seeing the outlines of walls and arches, but whenever they got close, everything faded into the murky water. When the discoveries at Bimini were compared to other findings across the world, the puzzle became even stranger. In South America, at Tiwanaku in Bolivia, archaeologists unearthed ruins dating back over 14,000 years. The walls were covered in carvings depicting ships with unusual sails and people wearing garments unlike any known civilization. One inscription read, "They went west, beneath the water." On the other side of the world, in Greece, underwater caves near Crete revealed columns eerily similar to those described by Plato. No known civilization could have built them. Greek archaeologists dismissed them as natural formations, but their symmetry seemed almost too perfect. Then there were the ruins off the coast of Japan. In 1986, near Yonaguni Island, divers found an entire complex of underwater terraces, staircases, and pyramid-like structures. The debate raged. Were they man-made or shaped by nature? But the carved symbols, resembling Mayan script, raised more questions than answers. The strangest discovery came in 2011, when researchers detected what appeared to be an ancient city 600 meters below the ocean surface near Cuba. Radar scans revealed the outlines of streets and buildings. Probes sent down captured images of columns, pyramids, and vast plazas. But each time an attempt was made to get closer, the equipment malfunctioned. Scientists struggled to explain these discoveries. Some argued they were remnants of separate lost civilizations, unconnected to one another. But the repeating symbols, architectural styles, and construction techniques all pointed to a common origin. A pattern was emerging. And on the map of the world, a faint silhouette of a long-lost continent began to take shape. Livia, an archaeologist with a decade of experience, eagerly examined the ancient texts, their dust-covered pages revealing cryptic knowledge. In her hands was a manuscript describing a startling theory. A group of people who survived the fall of Atlantis might still be alive. Myths from cultures across the world spoke of the so-called descendants of Atlantis. Individuals possessing extraordinary abilities, unparalleled knowledge, and a mysterious force. But could they have been real? The deeper Livia delved into the history of Atlantis, the more she became convinced that those who had survived the destruction of the great continent had left their mark on the world. What if the Atlanteans, hidden in the shadows, were still among us? The idea haunted her. Her research led to enigmatic evidence scattered across the globe. In ancient Greece, India, and South America, legends described people whose abilities defied explanation. Individuals who could foresee the future, possessed exceptional strength, or demonstrated intelligence far beyond the norm. But what if these were not mere myths? What if they were the last descendants of those who had once walked the streets of Atlantis? Determined to uncover the truth, Livia approached the subject with a scientific mindset. She began with historical records and legends, searching for patterns. Then, in an obscure ancient manuscript, she found an account of a group that had fled to distant lands, escaping Atlantis' destruction. They were called the Keepers of Knowledge. The descriptions were striking. These individuals were exceptionally gifted. Those connected to the descendants of Atlantis often exhibited astonishing cognitive abilities, exceptional attention to detail, photographic memory, and unparalleled analytical thinking. Their minds worked at a level beyond ordinary comprehension, allowing them to process vast amounts of information with ease. Livia recalled meeting scholars and intellectuals who seemed to have no limit to their mental capabilities. Their ability to grasp complex concepts, foresee outcomes, and innovate in ways that defied conventional wisdom set them apart. History is filled with such individuals, great historians, philosophers, and scientists whose brilliance shaped entire civilizations. Figures like Pythagoras and Archimedes made groundbreaking discoveries that seemed almost too advanced for their time. Could their knowledge have been influenced by the remnants of ancient Atlantean wisdom? Even today, extraordinary thinkers continue to emerge, visionaries whose ideas redefine the course of human history. Were they simply gifted, or could they be carrying the echoes of a forgotten lineage? Legends of the Atlanteans possessing control over time or the ability to glimpse the future have appeared in multiple cultures throughout history. This intrigued Livia. Across the world, accounts existed of individuals who could predict major events, harness astrology, or use alchemy to alter fate. In South America, certain tribes were known for their prophetic visions, foreseeing natural disasters and celestial changes long before modern science could explain them. In Egypt, Priests could precisely predict solar eclipses, their knowledge seemingly far beyond what was possible at the time. Could these individuals have been the descendants of those who once wielded the lost secrets of Atlantis? If the Atlanteans truly mastered forces beyond human understanding, perhaps fragments of their wisdom survived, passed down through generations in ways that still remain hidden. Inspired by her discoveries, Livia decided to conduct a study among modern individuals, searching for traces of these extraordinary abilities in today's world. Throughout her work, she encountered astonishing cases, people who could inexplicably describe events from the distant past or solve problems that seemed impossible to the average mind. One of them was a young physicist who amazed her not only with his groundbreaking work in quantum physics, but also with his uncanny ability to predict the direction of scientific theories before they were even confirmed. He simply felt the movement of science, the way the world shifted. His abilities puzzled Livia. The deeper she delved into her research, the more convinced she became that in some individuals the energy of Atlantis still lingered. People who possessed unique strengths, mental, physical, or even prophetic, could very well be descendants of that ancient civilization, hidden in the shadows of time. Yet, Livia knew her work was far from over. The more she searched for traces of Atlantis, the more her theories would be challenged and met with skepticism. But who said that the whole truth was meant to be uncovered? "You're looking in all the wrong places," the old man with seafoam green eyes smirked, watching the map littered with markers. Atlantis was everywhere and nowhere. Archaeologist Anthony Carter couldn't tear his gaze away from the marked locations: the Bahamas, Crete, Bolivia, Japan, Cuba. How could one civilization leave traces across continents when, according to science, they shouldn't have even known each other existed? Atlantis wasn't an island, the old man continued, slowly tracing circles in the air with his finger. It was a shadow, an illusion. Carter scoffed under his breath, but the stranger went on. "Imagine a city you can't touch. It doesn't stand on land, doesn't rest on rock, doesn't root itself in soil. It drifts, not on water, but through time. You see it in one place, but it's already moved to another. You find its traces in Bolivia, but it's long gone to Egypt." The archaeologist wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat. What if this actually explained everything? Atlantis might not have been a physical place, but a phenomenon. Carter muttered aloud, barely believing his own words. Like a mirage, like a fragment of reality that lives by its own rules. The old man nodded. "You're searching for it in the ocean, but what if it never belonged to this world to begin with?" The thought was staggering. What if Atlantis didn't sink? What if it escaped? Slipped into another dimension, crossed into a parallel world, or, even worse, was still moving? Carter remembered sailors' tales of underwater cities where none should exist. He recalled ancient records of people appearing out of nowhere, speaking languages no one recognized. What if Atlantis was never in one place? What if it drifted through worlds, through time, through space, leaving pieces of itself wherever its waves brushed against reality? "Where was it?" Carter whispered. The old man only smiled. "Better ask. Where is it now?" Goosebumps prickled Carter's skin. He thought of old maps that placed Atlantis in wildly different locations, off the coast of Africa, in the Caribbean, deep in the Pacific. What if those cartographers weren't wrong? What if it was always shifting? If it's still moving? Anthony's voice sounded hollow, like it wasn't his own. "Then one day, you might just see it." The old man leaned in, his eyes glinting like sunlight on water. "If it wants you to." Carter instinctively pulled back. What if all this time he hadn't been searching for Atlantis, but it had been watching him? He remembered the strange interference that ruined his footage off Cuba's coast. The sailors' stories of ghost cities flickering in the mist before vanishing. What if Atlantis was still alive? Anthony's eyes snapped back to the map, landing on a point he'd once dismissed. He grabbed his phone, punching the coordinates into the search bar. A jolt of dread shot through him as the screen flashed. Location unavailable. No data found. Carter froze. He knew exactly what to do next. For centuries, Atlantis was nothing more than a myth, a bedtime story for mystery lovers. But year after year, more and more people are starting to believe that Atlantis wasn't just a legend. Ancient ruins, bizarre discoveries, and strange coincidences on old maps make us wonder, what if it was real? And who knows? Maybe you carry the blood of those who survived its fall. Yes, you. Maybe deep inside, you hold a fragment of that lost civilization, its power, its knowledge. Maybe you've always felt different, like you have abilities you can't explain. Maybe your family has passed down stories that sound impossible, yet feel true. With every new discovery, with every clue science uncovers, the evidence grows. The people of Atlantis might still walk among us. But that doesn't mean we have all the answers. Science is evolving. New technology, deep-sea drones, satellite imaging, advanced archaeology gives us a real shot at finding Atlantis's ruins. Soon, we might finally solve the mystery that's haunted us for thousands of years. Until then, all we can do is believe. Believe that the truth is still out there, that every clue, every discovery brings us closer to understanding what really happened to Atlantis and why it vanished without a trace. And maybe, just maybe, you will be the one to uncover the final piece of the puzzle. Maybe you will change history forever. Want more? On this channel, we dive deep into Atlantis and other mind-blowing mysteries that reshape how we see the past and the future. Subscribe now so you don't miss a thing, and drop a comment below. Your theory could be the key to unlocking the truth. The search isn't over. It's only just begun.